what have you seen happen to the ethnic groups?
All right, so as I was saying, Nana will get more into this because I wasn't alive when a lot of things started, where whole different sections of the South End that had row houses were taken down to build other type of housing. Castle Square, Cathedral, the Via, the whole area that is now the Mass Pike near Chinatown. So there were little, what do you call them, enclaves of ethnic groups in certain sections, like Syrian Town would have been over by Chinatown, which no longer existed. And there were different ethnic groups that came in. Castle Square is highly Asian. I don't know if it was originally or if there were Hispanic families brought into Castle Square. The Via Victoria was built for the Hispanic population.
Specifically Puerto Rican.
Yeah. So there were a lot of minorities, and I don't know if they were all here before or if they came in after. But for me, growing up, it was a community that had people of every ethnic race. We used to call it a melting pot. Siobhan, leave her alone. You know, the new term is mosaic that they're using, but I still find that the South End is very diverse. I think growing up here has definitely broadened my horizons, and I don't know, makes it easier to adapt in different situations, and I don't know, just I'm not closed-minded like some people that I say I went to high school with.
Some people who aren't exposed to different
I mean, I did find it hard, and I shouldn't say hard, but I actually found it strange going to high school and realizing there were people who were very prejudiced, and they did not like in any way, shape, or form certain groups. And there were people who disliked many groups. And I never had experienced that growing up here. So that was foreign to me when I started high school. And a lot of those people who I remained friends with, some of them have definitely changed their outlook as time has gone on, which is good.
Absolutely. My turn?
Yes, your turn.
Okay. Growing up in the 40s and 50s, and probably those who came before, the South End was called a port of entry community, which meant that a lot of the immigrant groups, particularly from Europe and, well, different parts of Europe, came here to settle. They came here, they had their own customs, their own languages, and like all immigrant groups, they tended to band together in neighborhoods. So the South End had a substantial Greek and Italian population, a very large Middle Eastern, Syrian and Lebanese population. There was a substantial Irish American population, and also immigrants that came in from Canada. There was a substantial African American, but American African, not they came here because they had lived in this country for a long time. A lot of them had lived in the north, and there was slowly a movement of blacks north from the south, which was a different demographic group. And they all lived in different parts of the South End. The Puerto Rican community started to grow. It hadn't been there at all in the 40s that I can remember. I didn't go to school with a single Hispanic kid, but they did begin to grow in the 40s and 50s. That was part of the change that we saw. Urban renewal. Do you want to get into urban renewal now?
Yeah.
Okay. Urban renewal was probably a major factor in the gentrification of the South End. Urban renewal, before the Boston Redevelopment Authority, the idea of urban renewal happened in what we call the New York Streets area, which is like the part of the South End that's adjacent to Chinatown. All of the houses were torn down there, all the people were moved out, and it was planned to be an area of new job opportunities, so business, but not great big factories or anything. They called it light industry. Right after that, the Boston Redevelopment Authority was established, and the first neighborhood they got involved in was not the South End, which had been a consideration, but was the West End.
Yeah.
And they tore down a whole neighborhood and rebuilt it with high-rise housing. And probably fairly expensive housing. But that neighborhood was gone and is gone forever. A lot of people who were moved from there, there are some who still survive, and they've, established a little museum of their own so that the neighborhood will never be forgotten, but the neighborhood is gone. The South End, needless to say, didn't want that to happen. The South End was a highly organized neighborhood of neighborhood associations. So even when people moved out, the neighborhood associations survived and were able to put pressure on the city agencies that might have had ideas different from what the people wanted. So I said, urban renewal led to gentrification. But it was only one of the factors that led to gentrification. The other was that after years and years and years of no investment by anybody in the city of Boston, we began to see the beginnings of new investment and development. So things like the railroad tracks where the Prudential Center area is now were no longer railroad tracks. They put money into places like the Prudential Center, and that brought new business and offices and people interested in living close to where they worked. So that was the second factor in the gentrification of the South End.
Yes.
And there were others, and I'll write a book for you sometime.
Alright, moving on to the last question. Starting with Uncle Harry. Do you think the results of gentrification have been positive or negative? Or what are some parts that are positive and some that are negative?
I think it remains to be seen. We have an ebb and flow now that's very surprising. in other parts of the city, they have, with the schools, they have different things to tell you almost the time of the year it is. Now, for a while, we had a certain group of people who came in. It was at a lower level. They stayed for a while and left. And in that period of time, there were transactions that started to be used to determine what kind of a population is there. Not specifically for that reason, but